This is the video for Section 8 Workbook assignment number 3 called Payroll, and as you can see from the printout, it is the third tab of the spreadsheet, the Section 8 Workbook file that sits in your source files until it's all done, which isn't yet. So this is a spreadsheet used by a small company that has 6 employees. These employees work by the hour, and it's called Payroll because when you have a company that employs people and pays them by the hour, you need to keep track of how many hours they worked and figure out every so often how much to pay them. Now, it's quite common for hourly employees to get paid every 2 weeks. So in this case, we have days 1 through 5 would be our first week, and days 6 through 10 would be our second week, and after 2 weeks we calculate how many hours they worked and figure out how much we pay them per hour, and then we'll write them a check or do an automatic debit to pay the employees. We also want to find out how many hours we used each day, because when an employee works for our company, it costs us money, and we want to know how many hours of labor we're spending on each of these days of the week. So to create this spreadsheet, the basic layout is quite simple. You'll note here, if you look through these numbers though, that a lot of them are 8. They're all set at 2 decimals. Most of them are 8s. So let's just keep that in mind and see if we can figure out a shortcut on how to create this. So this is our spreadsheet. We have distances, volumes. Sheet number 3 we will call Payroll. Let's just double click on there, Payroll. And I'm just going to cheat a little bit and put those in there. I'm going to double click right here. And there are my employees. I've just done that quickly because I don't want you to get tired just waiting there for me to type those in. So if I type in day 1, you may recall that I can click on day 1 and I can drag the fill handle and it will give me a run of days. It will count them up for me. That's handy. And I will use the formatting window, Control 1, to align them center. I always like to go center, center. And we'll make it bold. And we're going to give it some shading. And I think that's it. I'm going to take this whole section here and put the outside border on it. Now, you'll notice that most of them were 8s. That one's a 7, but most of them are 8s. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make them all 8s. There, I filled them to the right. I filled them down. I'm going to set them all to 2 decimal places. Number 2 decimal places. Okay. So now most of them, they're all 8s. But that one's supposed to be a 7. So I hit 7, enter. This one's 7.5. This one here is 5.75. And it's quite common in businesses to pay your employees, your hourly employees, by the 15-minute interval. So by the quarter hour. And that's why, quite realistically, most of these, well, these are all either 0.00, 0.75, some of them may be 0.5s. I see that Craig Ono has a habit of working 5.75 hours. Day 7, everybody was 8 hours. And there's a 5.75. Everybody worked 8 hours on day 9 and 5.75 here. There we go. That's all set up. So, the next thing we're going to do, this is a good time to pause the video, by the way. But the next thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out the totals. So the totals along the bottom tell us our daily usage of labor. At the bottom of day 1, we're going to put a formula in that will calculate the total of all the numbers up above it. We have a shortcut in Excel called the AutoSum function, which is shown here. This is the Greek letter sigma that stands for sum in math. You'll run into it in later years in math. When I click on it, it puts a formula in automatically for me. And what it's done is it looked for all the numbers that were stuck together right above it, and it's put in the formula equals sum, and then it's got an open bracket, B3, a colon, B8, and a close bracket. So that thing that's highlighted right there is called a cell range, B3 to B8, and you can see the little dancing flashing lights around that cell range from B3 down to B8, and that formula will give, or sorry, that's a function, and that function will give us the sum. So if I hit enter, let's take a look at it again. We can see it up here in the formula bar, equals the sum of B3 to B8. Now the syntax is very important, and what syntax refers to is the order that stuff is typed in. So we start with an equal sign, we start with the name, we follow it with the name of the function, and then in the case of sum, we follow up with a cell range that's written like this, a colon in the middle and 2 cells. Now the little drop down here shows you that you could also add up a bunch of cells from all over the place. Let's not worry about that. Sum, range, enter, and there we are. That can be filled right, and that gives us the sum for each of those columns. Now because we can sum vertically, we could also sum horizontally. Let's get some more space here. Put in an equal sign. I'm going to type it in this time. Sum, I open the brackets, I highlight the range, and I close the brackets. Equals sum of B3 to K3. Enter. And that gives me the total for Christine Brecknell. So if I wanted to know how many hours did she work, well, there's my sum right there. Filled down, and it tells me how many hours each of the employees worked. Last thing we're going to do is actually figure out how much to pay each of our employees. In this case, I'm going to label a column pay. Put a border around it, make it look nice. And over here I have to calculate how much to pay them. Well, in the instructions it says put in a formula in column M to calculate their wages, assuming they all make $15 per hour. So if this person makes $15 per hour, Christine makes $15 per hour, I just say 15 times the number of hours she worked. Enter. And there we go. And so we have to make a check out to that person for $1,181.25. Fill that down. It'll tell me how much we have to pay everybody. Let's make those all a currency by clicking here. And this assignment is done.